We here. Jays get it done. In a thrilling Game 7, we will discuss how they got there and what's to come up next against the great mighty LA Dodgers. Up next on Beyond the Locker Room. So the Jays are in the World Series. Fantastic stuff. A clutch Game 7 game on home soil. They get it done. Being down 3-2, they seal the deal in typical Jays fashion this season. Late hitting, clutch hitting, and George Springer usually in the middle of it. I would say this was it was thrilling to see that home run. I made so much noise. I think I woke up half the house. And I was down the basement doing so. And so it was something to see. I did not think that home run would actually make it. I thought for some reason it was going to go foul, and it looked like he pulled it, but it just just see the Mariners fielders just keep drifting back. And it's like, okay, we're good, man. So it was a really great series. I mean, what this means for the country, what this means for the city, words can't explain it. The Jays do have a special place that I mentioned at the beginning of this run in the sports landscape. Kind of truly are the national team. And watching, Jays fever just spread across the country is really something to behold and something to really see and just enjoy it for what it is. For some of the younger fans out there that were around for 92 and 93, enjoy the moment, man. It's a really special time, and it's great to see, how it is. Obviously a lot of the folks here, have seen the Raptors win the championship and seen how that was. This is also going to be a great phenomenon too when you watch in the World Series as they host the Dodgers this Friday. I will say this though, just the leading up to it and how we got here, it was, props to them down 0-2. They get 2 big wins in Seattle. And just watching Vladdy, continue to just torment pitching left, right, and center was something to treat, really, to watch, to see how he's matured as a batter, how he's taken his approaches to the plate, which is what I thought was one of the keys for him to be successful in this playoff run. He has delivered, and consider that he's doing this without Bo Bichette behind him, protecting him in this case. Like he'll take the walks if need be, if they give the intentional walk at times where they're kind of pitching around him. He's not getting frustrated with it. He's been on the base pad running smart and aggressively, which has also been an issue of his in the past. He's really been focused, and the glove's been the glove. I mean, he had one error, I think, throughout the playoffs, but overall, I mean, in game 6 with Savage kind of leaking oil a bit. I mean, he was involved in turning quite a few beautiful double plays. I remember that backhand stab he did to kind of turn one of them in this case, where I think it was maybe the 5th inning or so, where they were really. Where you're like, you're 4th or 5th inning, where you're really thinking Savage is going to kind of get knocked out of this game. And obviously it was all for all the marbles at that point, down 3-2 at home. So he's been clutch. He's been unbelievable. Props, as I said before, old man Springer does it again. As I said before, at the beginning of the series, at the beginning of the playoffs, your stars have to be stars, and Springer has had some momentous hits throughout his career. This one is probably one of the biggest he has. I think overall, I was just running it through my head. I'm not sure if I can find a top 5, but right now, if I had to move up the scale, I would say this is the biggest home run. I would say this is number 3 right now. Depending what happens against the Dodgers, this is number 3. I would say if they ended up winning the championship, this might be right behind Joe Carter if they win the championship. Right now, I have it at 3, and I have Alomar's hit home run against Eckersley as number 2, because that was the run towards the first World Series for the Jays at Oakland, and Eckersley had been just tormenting the Jays for years, and Eckersley had a lot of talk in this case for the Jays. So for that to happen on Eckersley and Alomar coming up big, which he always did in the postseason, there's number 2. This is number 3. I put Joey Bats now slides the 4 at the moment. But, considering the time and place of what happened in Game 7, this definitely is number 3 at the moment. As I said before, with chances to move up depending what happens in the coming weeks. Let's get the pitching. I think a gutsy outing, by a gutsy outing by Savage. By Bieber, I should say, and. He's a bit frustrated for getting taken out of the game. I get where he's coming from. I kind of feel the same way. I like to have the starters work out some jams because I still feel I'm of the philosophy that my starter is still better than any option, at least on this team, with the middle relievers. We saw what happened in Game 5 with the middle relief and how that played out. I don't think you can take that chance again with this with on a Game 7. I'm glad Schneider did not take that chance. He just kept riding it out. With he put Gosby in for an inning, which was smart. Didn't mess around with any of those dudes like Flaherty and Little and Varland. No, not in this game. Get your best out there and see what happens. The Bassett call was a bit interesting. Did not see that coming. But he pitched a great inning, and it was an important inning because it gave the Jays the chance to close it out with Hoffman. And Hoffman, man, brilliant throughout the entire playoffs. Brilliant. Pitched some huge innings against the meat of the order for some of these teams. Especially in the Seattle series, he was fantastic in the ALCS. Obviously, it's hard to give a closer, kind of the MVP. Obviously, Vladdy deserved it, but if you had to give your lieutenant or second lieutenant, it definitely, I think, might have been Hoffman in this series. Overall, the home field was, I said it from the beginning too, that the Jays needed that tiebreaker more than the Yankees in a lot of ways, because the Jays are a very good home team, and they needed it, and you can see why. They got back home after dropping the first two in the series against Seattle, and they came back roaring in Game 6 and 7. The fans, the crowd, the dome, it was popping. It was fantastic, and I think this is going to be a fascinating series coming up with the Dodgers. Well, let's get into it with the Dodgers. One more thing, actually, before we get to the Dodgers discussion. Props to the bottom of the batting order. I mentioned a few times on X throughout the series. That bottom of the order had delivered. It set up the table for Springer for the 3-run shot. Those boys at the bottom of the order were fantastic. Ernie did his thing. So before, all the guys in this case that were at the bottom of the order, had big hits when you needed to. And I just want to give them their props as well too. Because a lot of times we talk about the stars, talk about the aces, we talk about the closer, of course, but that bottom of the order really was in a lot of ways the difference in the series in Seattle. Seattle's bottom of the order did nothing for them. Pretty much were almost 3 automatic outs. The Jays, bottom third played in this case the heart of the order, or the top of the order at times. It was relentless, and I think it put so much pressure on the Seattle pitchers that there's no place for Seattle's manager to kind of really figure out where to bring in some of his relievers, because there's no respite in this case in the Jays order. So props to the bottom of the order. Let's get into the World Series now. Jays host it. It's the 2-3-2 format, not my favorite format, so it does put a lot of pressure on the Jays to get these 2 first home games. Starting off, I would say this. The key in this series, folks, is the Jays have to be patient with the Dodgers starters and work the count. They're going to have to work these counts at 2-2, 3-2 counts, foul off some balls. Just, it's one of the things, just get the odometer moving, get the pitches up on these starters. Because if you get into the bullpen, then you have something cooking with the Dodgers. But that starting pitching lineup has been historic. It's been some 90s Atlanta Braves stuff we're seeing here from these starters. And I think right now, Milwaukee has a very similar concept and a similar way of attacking as the Jays, where they're, heavy on keeping the ball in play, lots of contact, and they shut the Brew Crew down. So the Jays have to really be, I think, not only working the count, but when they do get something, potential rally going, they gotta be resourceful. They can't keep, a lot of times they left a lot of guys in the base pads in the Seattle series. They cannot afford to do that in this series. So I really want, them to really get their opportunities and get the job done when they get their chances. With guys on second, guys on third, they've had bases loaded with nobody outs in the Seattle series and get no runs out of it. That cannot happen against the Dodgers. They will make you pay. So I think that's something to watch for. Ohtani will be getting the start probably. It looks like he's going to get the start in LA. Just for FYI, that batting lineup is no reprieve for them as well too. I think this is a series where I think you're going to have to ride the stars a bit more, because I'm sorry, those middle relievers against these Dodger hitters, that makes my stomach feel a bit queasy. I don't like those situations. I think you really got to pick your guys out of the bullpen and say, okay, these are the guys we're running with. Maybe a guy like Little, maybe a guy like Flaherty, maybe Varland to a lesser extent. You got to pick their spots on which batter you want them to face. I don't think you can just throw them out for an inning and think like you're going to get away with it with the Dodgers. That will not do. So they're the underdog, you know, for you betting guys out there. I think it's like minus 200 or something like that. But like, I think there's opportunity here for the Jays to really do some damage if they can get into the bullpen and just wear out these starters for the Dodgers, these Dodger starters. That's the key in my mind. I think on the other side of things, once again, managing the middle relief on the Jays side, making sure that, you know, that they're not exposed too often against this Dodger behemoth of a lineup. So to me, those are the two scenarios we're looking at. And take care of business at home with this 2-3-2 format. It always puts a lot of pressure on the home side in those first two games to make sure they hold serve. So that's where it's got to come down to for the Jays. Hey folks, it's been a great run so far, a great ride. I am looking forward to it for next week or two. This is gonna be a lot of fun starting on Friday in Hogtown in the T-Dot. Stay right here to find out all your Blue Jays stuff as well as everything else going on as the Raptor season just started. Looking good so far. We'll see where things lead to on that front. But you can find me discussing some Raptors here as well as on Basketball Rewind weekly with the fellas. Check that out. We just put in a post game for the first game of the season on Basketball Rewind. And I'll put that there. Put that there in the playlist as well too. So check us out there, and that's a weekly thing. Also, you can always find me on those social media streets. You can find me on that place called X, Blue Sky, Facebook, and of course right here on YouTube. As I said before, like, comment, and subscribe. We appreciate the support. Check you all next time. Peace.